Hello and good morning. Good morning. I'm Fred Oswald, SIOP's incoming president. It's my honor to provide the introduction for the presidential address this year by Mort McPhail. Mort will discuss change in the future, how SIOP and IO psychology is already preparing for that future, and he'll describe some of the challenges that are still ahead. But before he begins, let's take a few minutes to learn more and perhaps be entertained a little bit about SIOP's leader. So, in the spirit of Mort McPhail's name during this introduction, please think of me as not Fred Oswald, but F. Lewis Oswald. Thank you. So, Mort made the papers in the 70s, and the Baytown press, at least then, thought he had an unusual profession. Maybe the press is nicer these days, let's hope. Maybe the ONET is nicer, but there we go. And the press had some impressive facts about Mort at the time, but in fact they've accumulated even more impressively, as you can see here. Mort has practiced IO psychology for more than 35 years. His clients have included major municipalities, the federal government, and private sector organizations ranging from small family businesses to Fortune 100 companies. His consulting work included audits of existing selection procedures, development and validation of an array of scientifically based assessment tools, creation of performance management systems, development of training and development programs ranging from craft personnel to senior executives, and executive assessments for selection and development. The list goes on. The list is impressive. Mort is a fellow of the Society of Industrial Organizational Psychology. There's a number of other accomplishments and accolades I don't care to cover here. I want to get to the entertaining aspect of my presentation. But please read more about him. So beyond these impressive facts, I decided to go beyond the facts and do a little bit of intelligence gathering to get some information, to get some rich information. I contacted some well-known informants in the field to do some gathering and compiling. I got a lot of information from one place that really helped me out a lot. I'm very grateful. I'm not quite sure it helped Mort out a lot, but it helped me out a lot. There's some unnamed sources that poured in, and I won't reveal them. Also conducted a 3-hour structured interview with my magic 8-ball to get some answers. So I got a mix of information here to present to you all beyond the facts that anybody can look up and Google. So with this information in hand, it was hard to figure out what facts are facts, right? Even if you have the facts, will you believe me? So if I don't mind saying so myself, I cleverly mixed the facts with some fiction here. I'm not going to tell you which is which. You're going to have to figure this out. So I'm going to have you take the self-scored 4-item Mort quiz. I might try and sell this in the vendor arena later. So here's question 1. Growing up, S. Morton McPhail was called, well, maybe the S stood for sharpshooter. He's always a Texan, and there he is. Maybe Smorton. You know, I would avoid Smorton as well if I had that S name. Well, could be Samuel. It says Samuel and then becoming Mort. Maybe he went through witness relocation and CIA type things. I didn't get enough information on that possibility. Then there's Mort. Well, getting warmer here. His dad was Sammy and distinctions had to be made. There he is in elementary school, front and center, Smith Elementary in Baytown. And I guess he ought to have been front and center because I managed to get some grades. At Trinity University, where he got his bachelor's, he got a string of A's that I could find here. Then he had a string of A's at Colorado State University, where he got his PhD in 1975. One grade stands out as being very important to us. Good job, Mort. So my key informant told me at Colorado State, he was a TA and RA. He had itinerant summer jobs like gas station attendant at airport, receptionist at a power company. They loved living in Colorado, Mort and his wife Suzanne, but they were aching for Mort to get out of school to start his real life. He took a job with LWFW consulting firm, came back to his family, his new jobs, and tripling the cost of living, but it was all worth it apparently. Well, let's move to question 2. How's Mort as a colleague? He's scholarly and detail-oriented. I can tell you that myself. That's a fact on my end. Digs into the real issues. He loves lists, spreadsheets, and calendars. So there he is digging into some facts as a young lad. He's thoughtful. He listens, he's open, he's insightful, he provides new perspectives for SIOP, IO, and otherwise. An esteemed colleague said, no matter how we might disagree on something, we could always work together. Seems like a good trait to me. It's very supportive, helpful, and motivating. And I'll attribute that one to me. Mort has been incredibly supportive and motivating to me, and he's just really fantastic to work with. Apparently, he's a great parental colleague as well. I guess you know who those sources might be. So let's look at Exhibit B here. His family life is exposed. In 1981, Mort and Dick Generette left LWFW and formed Generette and Associates, and Mort became a dad. Beth was born in 1981, I see she's here, and Alex in 1985. He supported a wife, 2 kids, and mother-in-law, made it to all major events in kids' lives, had several offices in his church, helped with the Boy Scouts, soccer, and baseball teams, attended football games and dance recitals, was a prop pop for his daughter's high school dance team, wrote professional articles, edited books, presented at SIOP, was on the board of SIOP, became a fellow of SIOP, is now president of SIOP. So, looks like he had work-life balance, but there was a lot of both. Very impressive. He thinks his kids, his wife, and his life are the best there is. He doesn't mind bragging about them. There they are. There's some evidence. Notice the theme here in the pictures. I picked up on this. I'm pretty discerning, if I don't say so myself. Here's a third question. Whenever Mort and I are at a restaurant, well, we order the same dinner. I'm going to give you a point for that one. It's true. It is uncanny. There could be a soundproof wall between us. We'd order the same thing. Another possible fact, he orders iced tea and wine, and perhaps they cancel out. There's some evidence. Number 3, he insists they crank up the ZZ Top. He's always a Texan. They're playing for him there in that picture. It's pretty cool. All right, question 4. I hope Mort's sweating. What embarrasses Mort? Well, nothing. Maybe this introduction. We'll see, I want to know. His baby pictures. Let's look at this for about 10 minutes. That might. Number 3 is the only reason for this slide. So in short, Mort is truly amazing. So says his key informant. And I have to say, so says SIOP. And Mort, without further ado, please come to the front. And thank you for representing us so well.
Thank you, Fred, I think. Good morning again. It has been a very great honor and privilege to serve as your president but I little knew the scope of this role until I plunged into it last April. I continue to be amazed at the incredible level of involvement, commitment, and energy that so many of you bring to this organization. I have always considered myself to be particularly fortunate in the friends I've made over the years, and in the last year I had the pleasure of working with many of them and the delightful experience of meeting and making still more, one of whom is Fred Oswald. And I'm thankful for all of them because they made my job so much easier and my work more effective. In my remarks at the closing plenary last April, I commented on the obvious fact that we live in a changing world where organizations and the work that people do in them are changing rapidly. Moreover, I observed that the rate of change is accelerating, both in the general environment and within organizations. In his most recent book, Thank You for Being Late, Thomas Friedman agrees with this assessment, even partly subtitling his book, The Age of Accelerations, and points to the startling extent to which it is true with respect to the technology that has come to define so much of the 21st century, globalization writ large, and global climate change. IO psychology and SIOP are not immune from these changes, both in terms of quantity and quality. Since our inception in 1986, our conference has grown by almost sixfold, and our membership today stands at over 9,000. Moreover, the Bureau of Labor Statistics projects that IO psychology as a profession will grow at a rate 5 times faster than the average occupational growth rate. But it's not merely a matter of numbers. The demand for quality in content and new session types at the conference is growing as well, which is why you will see several new formats over the next couple of days. Our membership is also expecting more from SIOP, everything from improved web experiences and communications to improved platforms for doing the work of the society, such as program review, as well as support for advocacy efforts to promote the science and practice of IO and enhance its impact. There are not only more of us, but we have growing expectations as well. It seems axiomatic that we need to prepare for the future. Last April, I told you I had 4 goals on which I plan to work during my term as your president. I spoke at length about the first of these and identified several actions that SIOP has already accomplished in preparation for the future. This morning, I'd like to tell you some about the things we've done in the last year in pursuit of the latter 3 goals and lay out some of my hopes for SIOP's future. I will not claim that we've accomplished these goals. Rather, I will point to markers on the road to their ongoing pursuit. SIOP is a dynamic organization, and if I've discovered anything during the last year, it's that we have no dearth of ideas for work that needs to be done. I noted last April that there were a number of initiatives that had already been undertaken with significant implications for SIOP's future. In addition to starting some new activities, we have continued to work on these ongoing tasks. I can't begin to relate the full scope of the work that is continuing on these and other fronts, but here are a few examples. When I spoke to you last year, we were in the early stages of seeking a new executive director to replace the retiring Dave Nershi. Bill Macy chaired a stellar group of dedicated leaders of SIOP in this effort. Anticipating the significance of this decision for the future of SIOP, They conducted a broad-ranging search and used state-of-the-science methods and instrumentation to define the needed competencies and assess the pool of candidates. Last November, following their recommendations, we successfully concluded that search by hiring Jeffrey Hughes to serve as our new ED. He started in February and has been working alongside Dave and with the AO staff, learning the job and assisting with the preparations for this conference. He will become ED in May when Dave officially transitions into a well-earned retirement. In a time of transition, our expertise helped to prepare us for the future. Last April, SIOP's Education and Training Committee presented their proposed competency model and guidelines for education and training in industrial organizational psychology. Your executive board voted to approve those guidelines and send them to APA for review and adoption as APA policy. We've received 2 sets of comments from APA boards and committees, and Education and Training is responding to them. We hope they will receive approval at the next Board of Directors meeting at APA. These guidelines will provide important waymarkers as we prepare for the next generation of IO psychologists for the work ahead. One of the most important and seminal documents produced by SIOP is the Principles. Task Force co-chairs Paul Sackett and Nancy Tippins have led a team of truly outstanding professionals through the arduous effort of reviewing and revising and updating the Principles. In January, I asked the chairs of the Professional Practice and Scientific Affairs committees to select members from their committees to review a draft of the task force that the task force had submitted. They completed their reviews quickly and efficiently, and the task force again went to work to prepare a new draft, which in turn was uploaded to the SIOP website for comment from you all. We've extended the deadline for comment until May 9th. The board plans to take up a draft at the September meeting. As in the past, the revised principles remain a living document, reflecting the accumulation of our scientific knowledge and our practical wisdom, and how best to perform this most central of functions in an ever-evolving workplace. Having celebrated our creation of an infrastructure for advocacy, we have continued to pursue science advocacy with our partners at Lewis Burke to increase the awareness of what our field has to offer and to ensure our inclusion in policy discussions and research funding decisions. Among the efforts underway has been a continuation of the work performed by the Police Working Group initiated by Jim Oots and currently chaired by Amy Grubb to offer the findings of our science and practice to influence policymakers as they try to address the complex issues of policing in our increasingly multicultural cities and towns. Additionally, we are examining ways in which we can communicate effectively how IO science can be leveraged to aid in the transition of veterans into civilian life. These specific activities are in addition to advocating for maintenance of budget support for behavioral science and IO science in particular, through communications efforts with Congress and showcasing the value of science funded by the National Science Foundation. In May, Katina Sawyer will represent SIOP at the Coalition for National Science Funding by presenting her recently funded research regarding the impact of effective male champions in organizations on gender inclusiveness and women in leadership. As part of our ongoing efforts to position IO psychology as a reliable resource for policy and decision makers, we are undertaking a new initiative. In the United States, economic indicators have historically documented the nation's macro and microeconomic trends through measures such as GDP, interest rates, inflation, and so on. Innovative psychological measures such as well-being, satisfaction, engagement, and underemployment may be able to complement these traditional measures. Accordingly, the SIOP Workforce Effectiveness Measures Task Force has been charged with investigating the feasibility of developing an index or measure that will assist public and organizational decision makers in accounting for the value of effectively deployed and managed human capital in making informed policy decisions. Rob Ployhart has agreed to chair this task force, and he's working closely with Steve Kozlowski, our new science officer. Friedman's book argues that globalization is no longer an option that countries can choose or not. Rather, the accelerating growth of what he calls the market makes global interaction, trade, and work inevitable. As that process accelerates, SIOP has increased its work with the UN, allowing IO psychology the opportunity to demonstrate our relevance on a world stage. SIOP's UN team, chaired by Laurie Foster, has been involved in a wide variety of initiatives in support of the UN's 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development. In the last year, SIOP's board has approved our submission of 2 formal statements of support for positions clearly within our areas of expertise. One addressed the economic empowerment of women, and the other advocated for decent work and living wages as an essential part of an overall strategy for the eradication of poverty. Similarly, SIOP has continued its relationships with other professional groups around the world, primarily through its membership in the Alliance for Organizational Psychology. Additionally, next month, quite a number of you will travel to Ireland to present and attend the European Association of Work and Organizational Psychology Conference. We are rapidly becoming an international community, with the benefits obvious in the sharing of IO science and practice with and from our colleagues across the globe. Last April, I noted that as SIOP works to prepare for and meet the challenges ahead, there will be challenges. While I cannot discern what all of those might be, at least one of those challenges lies at the very heart of our science, and thus our relevancy. When research is reproducible, replicable, and generalizable, it provides credible and critical knowledge and supports subsequent research and application. The more that I have examined them, the more I have come to view the issues of questionable research practices, reproducible research, and replication of scientific results as being of paramount, perhaps even existential concern to IO psychology, both as a science and as a profession. Take a look at Liston McDaniel's article last year in TIP for additional information, including a brief review of the literature. In my most recent TIP column, I noted that I think the risks of these issues fall into at least 4 domains: epistemology, the funding of IO science, the reputation of IO psychology, and advocacy efforts. These issues infect the future of IO psychology with seeds of doubt and error that are unacceptable to any science and to any application of that science to consequential issues affecting large numbers of people and the systems in which they live and work. In response to these issues, we have established and funded a task force on robust and reliable science, chaired by Stephen Rogelberg. The task force is charged to identify open science and other efforts that would be initiated to serve as counterbalance to QRP concerns. In addition to the work of this task force, I would point you to the Replicable Research Initiative at this conference. You will find sessions devoted to sharing data and analytic code and to discussions of the issues and complexities associated with doing so. In several recent articles in TIP and elsewhere, a deep and important debate has begun about the role of theory in IO science. I think this debate is pointing to an array of issues that harbor risk for us. In asking, has IO lost its way, Owens and her colleagues in the most recent TIP issue raised some fundamental questions about how we pursue the scientific enterprise. In particular, the role and limits of theory in shaping and hindering research. In a previous issue, Locke made a case for inductive research as an antidote to over-reliance on theory. However, the more fundamental issue of the role of theory is one that our profession must address if we are to remain relevant and advancing in the age of accelerations. I would argue that the issue is quite obviously a both-and question. However, in the real world, the question is both epistemological and structural. In a soon-to-be-published chapter, Campbell and Wilmot identify 5 goals that should be served by theory, research, and practice. 4 are positive, and 1 destructively reflects the reward structures in the form of publication and citation rates. They disparage the role of theory for theory's sake in serving this 5th goal. Thus, regardless of the legitimate epistemological debates about the role of theory, theorizing has too often resulted from the ways in which the scientific research enterprise itself has been structured, evaluated, and rewarded. These issues already are being discussed across multiple disciplines, and I fully expect this debate will continue. IO must participate fully in it and find ways of addressing the complex, interrelated, and vexing problems, or expect that our influence will wane and our science will stagnate. A 2009 Harvard Business Review article by Hagel, Brown, and Davison described one of the revolutions of recent years as being the shift from value residing in stocks of knowledge to residing in the flow of knowledge and skills around the world. One example they gave struck me as particularly relevant to a group of highly educated professionals, I don't know, maybe like us. Here's how they posited the question. As individuals, we expect to go through structured educational programs in the early stages of our lives. Then we enter the workforce, secure in the belief that the skills and knowledge we have acquired will serve us well throughout our careers. Sure, we'll acquire new knowledge as we work, but the key is to effectively leverage the knowledge stocks we acquired when we passed through the educational system. The authors then go on to make a case that this model is no longer valid. Rather, it is the transmission, interaction, and dynamics of knowledge, the flow, in the now global community that is the locus of value. One implication of this change is that the half-life of our expertise stock has been growing shorter as the world is accelerating. We are all having to become lifelong learners, unable to rely only on our academic educations. What does this mean for the future? First, it almost certainly means that the value of this conference will continue, but it won't be enough. We will need to invest in more and more frequent opportunities for restocking our knowledge. Universities will need to find ways to be agile, updating and even changing wholesale curricula and the associated requirements for graduation. Online instruction was once cutting edge, but new models are already supplanting it, and the academy will have to adapt quickly. We will also need to find more ways to tap into the global flow of knowledge and to contribute to it. Our publication process will likely change. Hint, it's already changing. To be faster and more nimble. Though I don't know how yet, I believe that SIOP will have a role, no, indeed must have a role, in this investment in flow. Perhaps it will involve partnering between universities and businesses to create easily and dynamically updated educational opportunities. It may mean upping our game to contribute to the flow with multi-contributor dynamic white papers, or creating and fostering virtual forums. But don't listen to me. I'm old school. The new innovations are already happening, and I just want SIOP and IO psychology to be a big part of them. Last April, I said I thought it necessary that we do what we can to look ahead. We certainly will not be right all the time, but as a profession, it seemed to me we need a method for scanning the horizon. This is a big job. I spent quite a bit of time trying to come up with a way to do it. Then it occurred to me that I know a bunch of really smart people who could probably help figure it out. First off, some of the scanning we do already through our surveys of membership, hence the top 10 list of workplace trends. And the important and valuable efforts of individuals who publish articles about technology in TIP. But I was looking for something a little different. To help me sort it all out and evaluate the feasibility of doing this kind of scanning, I appointed the Future Scanning Task Force. I've asked Alexis Fink to chair it, and they will be meeting for the first time during this conference. The task force will undertake to identify methods and sources for detecting trends, new ideas, issues, concerns, and other factors of importance to our science and practice. I encourage you to attend some of the sessions in the theme track beginning after this plenary. Tracy Kantrowitz and her team have put together an exciting and substantive set of sessions designed to continue to explore issues of the future. They focus on trending topics and highlight our progress and the new frontiers still ahead of us. So where is SIOP headed? I confess that my crystal ball remains cloudy. Maybe I'll need to borrow Fred's magic 8-ball. But I'm an incurable optimist about the importance and durability of the research and practice that IO psychologists are engaged in. I think we have both the expertise and the will to thrive in the age of accelerations, but doing so will require both creativity and effort. The scientists practitioners of IO psychology have those strengths and to spare. As I started out saying, I've been extraordinarily fortunate in my friends. Starting with Jack Hautaloma, my major professor at CSU, who became my mentor and friend. Continuing with Dick Generette, my first employer, who became my business partner and my friend for almost 40 years. And always including Suzanne, my high school sweetheart, who became my wife and friend for a lifetime. I have continued to be shaped and enriched by the people around me. The people do indeed make the place. And this far-flung place we call SIOP is made up of extraordinary people doing extraordinary things, preparing for an extraordinary future. Science need never fear the future. We are equipped with the tools to explore new frontiers, to understand and to work to impact our own future. Thank you for this opportunity to serve as your president. It has been extraordinary. Please enjoy the conference and have a great time.